right. We're gonna go, I'll wait one more minute and then we will go ahead and get started. Um, Keep in mind this will be recorded. A good idea is to keep an eye out for this recording when you're done, but I'm also going to, we're gonna send a free consultation link. As usual with all admissions focused things, a targeted advice, like more specific advice to the student is always helpful. I think I've met some of the students that are in the room today already, but if you have not done that, whether or not you have done it, you can book a time with me to go over some transcript planning. Um, I'll take us through our agenda in a second, but thank you again for joining us tonight. Um, Okay, it's 7:02, so let's get started. Um, so my name is Kate. I'm the Executive Director of Admissions here at Testiv. Wanted to thank you all so much for being here. I've been a college advisor since 2012. I worked with students primarily on their application essays, actually, first, which was really interesting because they have to kind of sum up their entire academic journey. I would look at their transcripts, kind of put my admissions hat on, and then help them develop like the most compelling stories about them. I've really expanded my expertise since then into more full service advising, strategic coaching from eighth, ninth grade on, for students who are looking for any kind of pathway that can be alternative or it can be highly selective schools. It's really run the gamut. Essays tend to be where I live and breathe, but I've really enjoyed the more the more long-term planning of transcript planning. I think actually really helps the essay process. So I consider them all really working together in tandem, actually. All right, so let's just go over kind of the main question I think that maybe had a couple of you sign up. So the main question that every parent asks, I remember getting this question when I was actually starting advising, and more working on the essay side, but people were just curious. This was a really big one. Okay, like an easy A or a hard B plus, right? Like an A in a regular class or a B plus in an AP class. Which one actually helps? Um, You'll hear this phrase a lot from me tonight. The answer usually is it depends. So we're going to be looking tonight at all of the different factors that answer kind of depends on, right? So one is going to be overall course rigor. We'll talk about target school fit, how to reverse engineer your transcripts based on where you're looking to apply, and what career areas you're interested in pursuing. Also, AP versus IB, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I can definitely, I'll tailor this a little bit to folks who are here. So please go ahead if you do have any questions, put them in the chat. Um, Additionally, give us your grade level of your student, anything you're interested in learning tonight as well. I'll make sure that I loop it in into the conversation. We should be about 45 minutes or so, or maybe an hour, depending on how much I yap. So we'll see, but it's a topic I'm really interested in. So hopefully we'll get some good nuggets. And again, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Okay, so our roadmap for tonight, our overall agenda. One, why does rigor matter? How do admissions officers read a transcript? How does it fit in the context of a college application? Number two, we're going to go over course selection by grade year. What should you be prioritizing and thinking about as freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior? Number three, AP versus IB. I know that many schools these days are actually incorporating IB programs into their curricula. Some have the AP route. Some have different routes from that even. I think one thing that it's important to remember is that colleges will know what is offered at your school. But then given those choices, what do you pursue? Like what's the best fit for your student? Finally, building your target list, matching your coursework to your college goals. What do you want to take? What career are you interested in pursuing? We give some pointers for that. Finally, some live Q&A. So let us go ahead and get started. I'm just going to pull up the chat here so we don't miss anything. Uh, but the lovely Lauren here is also co-hosting with me, and she'll be able to field any questions you have on the side as well. All right, let's begin. Okay, so why does course rigor matter? Um, One thing that is really important when it comes to college applications, I had mentioned in the last webinar that I did something really important, which is the common data set. If anyone knows what that is, I'll pipe it in the chat. But if you don't, it is definitely your cheat code when it comes to figuring out what your college of choice is looking for. It's released every single year. It's reported to the government from every college in the US. And essentially, it's sort of a cheat sheet into how their admissions round the previous year went. This includes how many students reported their SATs versus ACTs. What was the average GPA of the admitted student? What regions did these students come from? And then how much do they consider each factor of an application, from course rigor and grades all the way down to things like demonstrated interest, which are kind of case by case. When you look at a common data set for your school, you are invariably going to find that course rigor and grades are the number one most important factor. So they are viewed in tandem, right? A straight A student, that's going to be viewed upon favorably. But the thing to be aware of is that no one's going to look at an application or a transcript in a vacuum. So they're not just going to see GPA 4.0. Okay, cool. Next, great, perfect, they're through. They get your full transcript, right? Which is shared by the school. Um, and they actually also get a school profile. What is involved in that school profile will be a couple of things, but that also includes a list of all of the more challenging courses that are offered. So, what are their AP courses? How many do they offer, right? How many students take them? They will use that school profile to actually contextualize your grades. So they'll say, okay, so they've got all A's, but they've taken no AP courses, right? Whereas, 50% of students take at least one AP course. That might look a little bit different, as you can imagine, than someone who has all A's in 10 AP courses, right? Now, those are really two black and white ends of the spectrum. And usually people tend to fall in the middle. But the one thing you need to always be remembering is context is really key. And so having that conversation with your high school counselor who knows the landscape of their students and how many are taking APs, that's a real good database approach to seeing how you fall and how you compete within your school. Um, Admissions officers, so the key thing that they'll look for is, okay, number one, how are the grades, right? And you'll want to pass a certain academic index or benchmark, but they'll also be asking, did the student challenge themselves? So myth number one that we are busting is that all A's is the best applicant. That means nothing without rigor. So an A on its own doesn't really mean much. You want to make sure that you have rigor to back it up, right? On the other side of the coin, another myth is that more APs is better, right? You could take 15 APs. There's some kids I speak to who are really taking 15 APs, but don't have scores to report because they got a 3 or lower. Um, this is always a very interesting case because you'll have the grade that a student will have in the class, right? So you say you're taking AP Lang, you are getting all A's and everything, you're a great student, you're attending, and so you get an A in the course. But then come time for the actual exam, you get, you know, a 2. Admissions officers will kind of factor that in, right? Ideally, you are going to get both strong grades and a great AP score. That's obviously harder to do, which is where nuance is really important when you're planning your transcript. Not loading yourself with APs and being realistic with yourself about what you're really good at and where you feel you can make that impact of having 3 really strong AP scores and great grades in maybe less challenging courses that aren't really in your area. That's always going to look good. It will also tell a story about you, right? It will say, hey, this kid is a humanities kid. They love history, they love English, and so they challenge themselves in that. They were realistic with themselves, and this was sort of my case. I did not love math. I really didn't. So I took one AP math course, and I did okay, but my transcript I think read favorably because it was clear like I had real skill sets in one area, right? Some students are just amazing and well-rounded and able to do it all, but or to put it more accurately, some students just like tend to perform well in the more challenging course rigor. And if they want to go full force and really really do it and feel capable, that's great. But that's not every student. And if you spend all of your time cramming for APs, then you might miss out on other opportunities to stand out in terms of extracurriculars, personality, all these different factors. Final myth is GPA is everything. So this is, we're just kind of repeating here, but keep in mind grade trends. So say your cumulative GPA, meaning the GPA from freshman year to senior year, is maybe a 91 or like a 3.7. A 3.7 that has a low GPA freshman year but really high junior year is going to be viewed really favorably. They're not going to fault you for getting your footing your freshman year. It's not how you start the race, it's how you finish it. So keeping in mind that you want to set yourself up to be the most successful and so show the strongest performance your junior year is a really, really important thing to prioritize. Um, You'll also probably get the sense that at different schools, there might be AP capstones, there might be more specialized programs, there might be dual enrollment opportunities. You definitely want to take advantage of those really in areas that you're truly interested in. Burnout is super real. So you want to make sure that you're enjoying these classes that you're challenging yourself in and really like renewing your energy in activities you love, doing something that refreshes you and gives you energy that so then you can go back to those challenging courses and do really great. Rather than like if I were a student who hated math and said, "Oh God, I got to take AP Calc BC my senior year because I have to," I would have had a way worse time in high school, and I probably still would have ended up not in a great place because performing excellently in every single class doesn't really tell much of a story about you other than you're a great student, and there are many great students. So it's a very nuanced picture. But hopefully this is liberating in that you are not expected to be perfect in every single subject. In fact, it can benefit you to really shine in one area. And then say, okay, my expectations of myself in math or bio or something that I'm not really interested in or skilled at, it's not going to be viewed as importantly as other things. Um, okay, let us move on. So now we're going to go over just what I tend to tell students year over year, what to prioritize, right? Um, a lot of this is pretty intuitive, so I wouldn't be too worried about like, oh, I'm missing something in ninth grade. The only caveat is if you're aiming for some really specific programs, which I'll take you through a little bit later. Um, what I would say is one thing that's like, I think one thing to note and one exception would probably be someone who is looking for kind of an engineering or computer science or really STEMmy major at a really selective school. Um, for many of those programs or some of those programs, AP Calc BC or the equivalent is pretty important to have, and you want to have a strong showing in that. Now, that's fine, except that you can't just like take it whenever you want to, right? You need to take Calc AB before, you need to go through the prerequisites of your high school. So it's a really important thing to do in ninth grade, even just for a few minutes, is to look at all of the course offerings, look at the prerequisites, talk with your counselor and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking I want to do. You want to at least give yourself the opening and the option to say you want to do engineering or you're interested in STEM. Say, okay, I know that I have to take, like algebra or pre-calc, right? My freshman year. And then here's kind of my course pathway if I want to take AP Calc BC my senior year. Here's how I get here. Um, on the other side of maybe, if you're interested in humanities and you want to challenge yourself and have access to AP courses, I think the partner to that will probably be, AP language and composition and AP literature. Those tend to be, you take them kind of one after the other. Those go a long way towards colleges viewing your college readiness because a lot of it's really writing heavy. So you want to kind of map those out with your counselor if that's something you're interested in and if you're aiming for really selective admissions. But thematically, I think kind of big picture wise, there are a couple of things you want to think about in ninth grade outside of that. So one, you want to build a strong foundation in core subjects. Again, keeping in mind that as a freshman, it is your first time in high school. Not everybody nails it. You might see people who somehow are just managing to get straight A's and everything. That's not the majority of people. And so if you are not doing great in a subject, there's so much time to course correct. It's important to just be I think freshman year is a really important time to practice and to learn self-advocacy. So say you're not doing well in a course. Okay, I'm struggling in this like core subject in my math class. I definitely did my freshman year. I was like, what? I don't, my brain isn't computing this. Um, what you do then is, I think, as a freshman, if you can get out of the way the jitters over approaching your teacher and showing them that you really want to do well, and are interested in those extra opportunities, are interested in office hours, that goes a very long way and establishes you as a student that teachers really want to help. Um, I think that's just as important as a skill set to develop in ninth grade as getting good grades. So keeping that in mind with especially core subjects, because you're going to be taking them all 4 years, setting yourself up for success, whether that be with connecting with your teacher, asking for help, talking to them when you don't understand something. It doesn't have to be raising your hand in class. It can be approaching them privately or writing an email or however you feel comfortable. Definitely make sure you establish that rapport and get used to advocating for yourself academically. So while we're building a strong core, we also want to explore electives. This is ninth and 10th grade are really a big discovery period. You might have a sense of I'm an English kid, or I'm a math kid, or I'm a science kid. I probably knew that pretty quickly. And a lot of students that I work with tend to have at least an idea of things they like. Not everyone does though. And so you want to sort of keep a record of your classes that you've signed up for. Which one are you enjoying the most? Which one are you performing really well in? The answer isn't always to focus on the thing you're performing really well in, right? And kind of lean into that. But it is really good information to know both of those things. Sometimes those things aren't the same thing. So, keeping that in mind, I think is important. Making notes to yourself and being really mindful of like what you're enjoying. And parents asking your students those things. Which are the classes you are liking the most? What's something you're learning that you find really interesting that you would want to know more about? Making that kind of a part of your regular conversation will help students get a little more comfortable with like saying what they are interested in eventually, like starting that conversation early, casually with very low pressure. You might want to aim for one honors course. I think especially if you're looking for more selective admissions, it is time to kind of start thinking about where do I want to challenge myself. Don't get too crazy and ambitious, but if there's something you're predisposed towards, yeah, an honors English course, an honors math course, definitely go for it. Um, be conscious of GPA, but again, and like work hard, but again, if you don't get the best possible grades your freshman year, it is not the end of the world. There's a lot of game left. 10th grade, this is where we start to say, okay, you've done ninth grade, you have a sense of what you like a little bit more. You might not know everything, but you have a sense of where could I challenge myself a little bit more? What was easier to me? What did I like? What felt easier? What felt interesting? Those are the two areas where I would recommend increasing some course rigor. Some students will start taking AP or IB school courses during this time. And I had mentioned a lot about APs. Mostly a lot of students that I work with take mostly APs. IB is kind of its own different ball game, and we'll talk through the differences in a bit. But it is much more guided and structured than AP. So you're probably kind of on more of a track with IB, whereas AP it's almost more like an a la carte kind of approach to honors courses. So it kind of just depends on the student what fits them the best. 10th grade, we also have the PSAT. The 10th grade PSAT, I say usually to students, don't sweat it. Colleges aren't going to see it. Colleges aren't going to see any PSAT that you take, even in junior year. But it is good for you to start to experience what the SAT is like. If you don't get a great score on this, do not worry. You have so much time. There's a lot of content you still have to learn, and you have to kind of mature. Just think of it as an experience of the test for the first time. Take notes on what you did well, what you didn't. That's it. And then think about potential college major interests, keeping in mind that students still do apply undecided all the time. Okay? So even if you're like, I don't know what I want to major in when I'm a senior, That's okay. But you do want to be able to say, here are the subjects that I like, right? So I would think of it more as rather than college major interests, like what would I enjoy studying more of in college? What do I want to learn more about? Just keeping that kind of framework in your head and parents framing it that way to students as well. Then you get to 11th grade, which is kind of the big game. That's the peak of a student's academic experience in high school. It usually is kind of the last, I mean, obviously it's the last full year that admissions officers see, and it is the peak, right? So that's going to be the biggest year if you've got great grades your junior year, whereas you struggled your freshman year, that's okay. You might likely say you don't have amazing 10th grade grades. Um, excuse excuse me. Um, if you don't have amazing grades in 10th grade or you have one class you don't do great in junior year, it is still not the end of the world. Once again, context is key. There is an additional information section in your common application that will go to all schools where you will be able to say, here's what happened in this class, why I didn't perform to the height of my potential. Here were the steps that I took to resolve it. Here is what I learned and what I will apply in the future. Short and sweet. It goes a really long way to kind of just give a brief explainer of a score that isn't meeting the rigor and like the grade level of other areas of your transcript. So definitely take that space. You also want to start thinking of your college list research. Again, you'll probably have a sense of what you're interested in studying, and then you can think, okay, I know the regions I want to go to school in. I know what I might want to study. You can begin your program research there. You might know, oh, I definitely don't want a big school. I want a small school. You can pick sort of your non-negotiables and start winnowing down from there with some info sessions, visits if you are able. If you're not able to visit, info sessions are fantastic and they are often conducted virtually and you can go to college fairs. Some people don't do visits until after they've been accepted, especially if they are more budget conscious and are looking for funding. And that is an approach that I definitely recommend, as so long as you demonstrate interest and are in touch with admissions officers and show that you are interested in the school in other ways. That's absolutely a valid route. Finally, 10th, 12th grade, the year of senioritis for some, slight year of senioritis for me. I don't know, parents, if you felt that when you were a senior. Your key is kind of just not to totally drop the ball, right? Senior year grades are reviewed, so you want to do a good job. Likely, students still might be taking challenging courses like AP Calc BC, as I mentioned. So just don't. I think in general, parents having that conversation with students pretty early on of like, I know you're a senior now. You still have to finish out the game strong. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially that second semester, but you just don't want to be one of those students that ends up getting a rescinded offer because of failing a class or not showing up. So keeping it generally status quo and keeping that positive momentum, I think, is always a good thing. You also want to put your best foot forward when it comes to AP and IB exams because that's how you can get some college credit. So, really finishing strong is going to benefit you in multiple ways, including maybe being able to jump some courses in college when you set foot on campus. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about AP versus IB. If anyone can sound off in the chat, please, just what program their students doing, that'd be great. Sometimes you don't get the option of what your school does, and you're just taking an IB program or you're taking APs, and that's is what it is. Some give the option. So I want to kind of talk through what the key differences are really briefly. If we have some parents of freshmen who are in the room, who are looking through those options. So, as I mentioned, AP exam or AP courses. Um, Thank you, Lauren. AP courses are again viewed a little bit as more a la carte, right? Individual courses, you can take as many as you want, you can take as few as you want, you can take none. They are on a 1 to 5 scale, with a 5 being the best. A 3 plus, usually I recommend reporting them. One thing to note is that when it comes to APs, you do not have to send or report your scores to colleges. You can say, all right, I'm only going to report my fives. I got fives and three. I'm going to just report those. And I got a two and like two, and I just don't think it makes sense for me to report that. Threes tend to be a bit of a fringe case where I usually recommend reporting a three on an AP because it can earn college credit. However, you want to make sure that you know your audience, and it depends on the school. So perhaps if a school is like an Ivy, you might not. It depends. It's a fringe case if you report a three or not, but it really is a case by case decision. Um, as I mentioned, your course grade in AP is going to be just your grade, like what you get on your teacher provided tests, quizzes, assignments. So that will just show up on your report card. Then there's the exam score, which is 1 out of 5. Those are separate. And so, should you want them to, colleges can see both, right? Should you not want them to, they'll just see your grade. It is really up to you, and there's a bit of a strategy to how you report those things. AP does provide some grade weighting, so this is why I think we often see now grades that are 4.0 unweighted and 5.0 weighted. You get some really, really astronomical GPAs these days for kids who are taking a lot of APs. Um, College credit can be provided for APs, as I mentioned, so even your senior year, making sure you invest some time into getting that great exam score is really key. And it's really great for students who want flexibility in subject selection, who are like kind of like me, where I was like, I don't think IB math would make sense for me, but I could challenge myself in areas that I wanted to, and kind of really tailor my where I was challenging myself in a way that allowed me to perform academically to the best of my ability. IB programs are now kind of the new hot thing. A lot of schools are implementing them. Um, One reason for this, honestly, part of what my way of thinking is that I had mentioned GPAs being really high these days. Colleges are very aware of GPA inflation. It is a pretty rampant problem. When colleges went test optional when it came to COVID, basically all colleges could see when it came to student applications were their transcripts, where everyone's getting a 4.3, a 5.0, and so all of a sudden those numbers kind of become meaningless when they're measured against students at other schools because they have different benchmarks and different standards by which they give those grades. And pretty much across the country, those standards kind of got like lower for what students would get in terms of what's an A student, right? Um, the IB program actually further standardizes courses. So it's a full diploma program, meaning you could get an IB diploma. So that is a full program where you're taking mapped out courses I had mentioned, or there are individual courses, IB courses, which are a little bit more like APs, right? Um, so they're on a 1 to 7 scale. 4+ typically tends to earn college credit. One thing to note is that, IB math, for instance, is really different from what like you might be learning in other schools. So the SAT math section, for instance, a lot of people who take IB math tend to need a little bit of a redraft when it comes to how they approach math. That's something that we've just found getting a lot of IB students coming to us. It's just a different approach to math that the International Baccalaureate does, so it's something to be aware of. But it's still very strong and like really great indicators of college readiness. IB programs are quite challenging, which is why a lot of schools are taking those on. It's quite structured, but in general, if you are up to it, I think it's a really great program where you're able to um, challenge yourself even further. You've got, if you can do well in this within the standardized data point, then your application is looking even more attractive because you're measured against everyone else taking an IB program, the same way your AP exam will too, right? So listen, an A in an AP Lit course is good. A 5 in an AP Lit course is even better because that means that you scored in a certain percentile against everybody internationally, right? Everyone who had applied. Same thing with IB. And that's actually globally too, like the 1 to 7 scale. So it just kind of widens your pool of competition and can really make a great statement about your ability to succeed academically and challenge yourself. Okay, so APs, why grades and exam scores aren't weighted the same. So I'll go into this briefly. I feel like I've explained this fairly thoroughly. If people are unclear, please feel free to email me. But yes, as I had mentioned, the AP exam score is that standardized data point in terms of students you're being measured against. It's everyone who has taken the AP exam, not just people at your school. Meanwhile, your course grade is going to be your teacher's assessment of how you did, maybe compared to your students, or it's just an average of how you did in in-class assignments. But that is going to be a little bit smaller in scope. So keeping in mind, like the key is, and I think this is why colleges really value the SAT, even though they have had to make it optional. They like to see how you would perform against students internationally, students who are coming to their campus. They want to see that you can keep up with them, not just with people in your school, right? Because that's just a smaller amount of people. Um, so a high course grade and a low exam score can definitely be a red flag. And again, in terms of like reporting, sometimes not reporting, if you have a 3, for instance, that might unlock a little bit of human bias where they might be like, oh, it could have been a 2 or a 1. So you just want to be pretty intentional about how you're reporting the 1-2 punch of like the grade for APs that's in your class and the score, and you want them to kind of work in tandem together to show your readiness. One last thing to note is that it is true many selective colleges require a 4 or a 5 for credit. So say you get a 3 in AP Calc AB or BC. If you are going to maybe like a top 20 school, it depends on the school, but some of them might say that's not enough, right? You got to just take our class. Um, and one thing to note is that I think you might have seen in the media right now that a lot of college professors are saying and having a lot of concerns about students' ability to, number one, read and write to the level that colleges require them to. And same with math. There's a lot of concern about students taking a math class and like showing up to math class as freshmen and really having no clue what's going on. Like an NYU professor reported that. So really meaningful. If you can get that 4 or 5 in an AP, you're in a really good spot because that is a great benchmark for college readiness, and that gives colleges confidence that you're going to be able to set foot on campus and not be one of those students who has no clue what's going on when you go to a math class. So that's very important. A few just bits of recommendation. I think AP teachers tend to be pretty great and solid when it comes to prepping for the exam. They know that's the most important, and you know, your success is their success. Like if their students aren't getting a really good breakdown of scores, they might be reevaluated, they might not teach the course anymore. It's in their best interest to prepare you for the exam rather than just the course. So I don't see that many cases where a student will get like an A plus in an AP course and then a 2 on the exam, but it can happen. I think if you're struggling, say in your course, there are free practice materials on the College Board. The other thing, we're going to have an offer at the end of this webinar where we can offer a free hour if you get 5 hours of AP tutoring. We keep it pretty cost conscious for folks, but it is a really good investment to get that bit of extra support if you want to make sure you're getting 4s or 5s or even a 3. If you're really struggling in a class and feel like you can get your grades up, but just need a bit of that boost to wade through really confusing material, wade through the volume of AP assignments, we've got a lot of great people. So we'll drop that consultation link. So last little bits to remember here. Yeah, check your target school's AP credit policy to make sure you're aiming for the right score. If it needs to be a 3 or a 4, obviously your aim is going to be as high as possible, but it is good to just keep in mind sometimes knowing that a 3 gets you credit takes a little pressure off, maybe you perform even better, right? And again, no need to overload yourself with APs. Really create the narrative of what you are good at and what you're interested in. Let your AP selection kind of tell that story. Okay, we'll breeze really quickly through IB. But one thing to note is that both AP and IB do have, depending on your school, likely an opportunity for more of a capstone. Um, so as I mentioned, like how colleges see IB programs, and this is, I think, the most important, is that it's one of the most rigorous programs around the world. Um, Global interdisciplinary thinking, there is a much more global approach to the curriculum in IB programs. You know, it's in the name, International Baccalaureate. Um, Scores of five, six, or seven, usually you are good for any course credit for top schools. Um, a full diploma is typically weighed a little bit with a little bit more um, value than just kind of one-off IB courses. And similar with APs, right? Like, I think just going the full diploma route, which that means you've really challenged yourself in every area. So it's not the perfect fit for everybody. And it's good to have a conversation with your counselor about whether they deem you a fit if that's an opportunity. Again, if you don't have an IB program at your school, then it's not a problem. You're not going to be penalized for it. Won't be an issue. Um, but the nice thing about IP is they also do have like there's a little bit more of a an overlap between how colleges approach curriculum and how IBs tend to. There's a lot of writing. You do have that extended essay where you're creating a research paper, highly interdisciplinary. So I think that is also something that colleges, obviously, that's if you've read about colleges, that's like the number one buzzword is interdisciplinary. And so you're pretty prepared for college in that regard by allowing your studies to intersect. So it's just a different program, but it is really great if you have an opportunity to do it and you're up for the challenge of the full diploma. It looks really great on transcripts. Okay, let's talk about kind of matching what you want to take to your target schools. So, one, I will say safety schools, I don't really believe in as a term anymore. Um, I think safeties are, it sends the wrong message, number one, right? I think likely is a good term, but I think safety is the word that most people use, so we kind of kept it in. Um, I think the key is what you deem to be a likely admit or a safety school, be extra, extra, extra conservative. Every year, more and more, I have students who come to me or parents who come to me and say, my son or daughter got totally rejected from all of their safety schools. This is not to, this is not because of anything that the student did or the parent did. It is just about application volume and it is about basically admissions acceptance rates just being incredibly low. Plus institutional priorities, there are all kinds of things, but colleges that 5 years ago might have been considered a safety for you, or even last year, that can change. So you want to have a real up-to-date and conservative approach to what you deem a safety school. Um, when it comes to, I think like I would think about it more in terms of sort of not rankings, but acceptance rates. So schools that have okay, top 20 to 50 universities. Schools that have, I would say, a 30% acceptance rate or lower. That's going to be a reach school for anybody. And when I say reach, I mean almost lottery. Like so selective that you need to hit all the benchmarks and there's still no guarantee. And if you get in, it's fantastic, but like no student can, very few students can really expect to sweep uh or get into every single top 20 school they applied to. It's just really unheard of these days. You're really lucky if you get like a couple of top 20 admits. So just keeping that in mind in the landscape. And you want to celebrate your student and really tell them like you're an amazing student, but it's just that the landscape has changed, right? That is the key difference. Now, that said, if you do want to be considered a candidate at these universities and put yourself in the best position to kind of make it past that first screening, um, you want to shoot for pretty high rigor. There are exceptions to this, right? Like 5 to 7 APs. Honestly, I'd probably go higher than 5 to 7 APs. I'd probably, I mean, I've a lot of students I meet with take 10, fit 12. Now, the key is this. There are exceptions always. So your whole profile has to be a part of this. If you are an athlete who's being recruited, you probably don't need to take maximum course rigor, but you want to have good grades, you want to have a certain SAT score, you get really good guidance on that. Um, if you are a student who wants to, say, be pre-med or apply to an engineering school at a top 20 program, maximum rigor does seem like the right, I think that is the correct thing. And I think you want to go actually beyond that. So certainly taking the most challenging math, science, computer science, STEMmy courses at your school is really key. But colleges will also want to see, okay, what about outside of school? Did you take dual enrollment courses? Was there research that you did that challenged you at the more college level or even professional level? Um, the maximum course rigor kind of story is just one piece of it, and they want to see you kind of pushing beyond what your school has. Even if it's a full IB diploma program, it's very important that you are thinking about ways to push yourself beyond what is offered at your school because students who are applying to those programs are usually in the top 10% of like academic students, and that can mean winners of international competitions in math, right? Like research publications in, professional science journals. So you want to be kind of thinking about it that way. Like it's not quite enough, I would say, anymore to just say like I took all the hardest classes at my school. You want to think actually beyond your school. Um, and I think with that said, like it is actually, I would reframe this and say maximum rigor in what you want to study. No one's going to give you a hard time if you don't take AP Spanish. Especially if they see like you've taken the most challenging in STEM, right, that your school has to offer. You've taken more outside of your school. And then you've kind of balanced it out with like maybe less challenging language course, maybe a less challenging like, elective pool or course. So you kind of want to pull all the toggles. It's just key that you have maximum rigor in your specific areas and maximum rigor being not only what your school offers, but what you can do outside of school, even like nationally, which is kind of crazy, but that's what those schools are about. Upward trending grades is essential. A lot of students who are applying to these universities will also just stay kind of like high, 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 high the whole way. That's fine. Great. Strong scores on APs, those are going to be expected. They're going to want to see the fours and fives and the six and sevens on APs and IBs. Target schools, and what I'm going to kind of frame that as is schools that have, let's say, uh, 30% acceptance rate to a 60% acceptance rate. Um, and you're in kind of the running there. Moderate to high rigor, challenging yourself in a specific area. It's great to be well-rounded if you can. The key, AP and IB courses that I would definitely try to challenge yourself on would be English, and English is really key. Mostly because, again, that like AP language and composition is probably the number one course in terms of APs, and the IB equivalent that colleges look to for college readiness. So if you can get a great AP Lang score, even if you're a really excellent STEM student who's kind of focused that way, that looks really good to colleges because they know you're not going to be like a STEM student who sets foot on campus and can't write anything or doesn't like like you hear stories now where students won't read in an English class, so you want to kind of avoid that fear. Strong GPA in challenging courses, 3+ for APs is excellent for a 30 to 60%. And again, it's probably a smaller amount of APs required. Just thinking about like, okay, what am I taking that, what APs can I take that are going to challenge me, in my intended area? That's basically what showing depth in the intended major area means, making sure that you've really deeply investigated the area that you want to study. And that can be through an AP, that can be through opportunities outside of class, like summer programs. All of those carry great weight with schools, with any school, but definitely with the 30 to 60% acceptance rate. A likely school I'd look at now is like 60% to 90% acceptance rate. Um, this, it kind of depends on your overall profile, but you got a little more flexibility here in terms of like you don't have to load yourself with AP courses. You want to still tell a good story of grade increases. Um, but yeah, it's not as demanding. They won't be looking for those international competitions or anything like that. Okay, this is the last thing I want to talk about because I do think it's really key, and I know some of the folks we have in here are thinking about, applying to programs soon, but also we got some younger folks in the room. So I had mentioned at the top of this webinar to have an early conversation with your counselor, and this is why. So. I picked kind of three career fields that a lot of students are interested in these days. Engineering computer science is obviously a very and has been a really popular one, maybe less so these days. I'm seeing actually more kind of niche career choices that students are pursuing, which makes sense. I think there are some questions about AI and everything, but obviously there has been this story for a long time, and it's been substantiated that like a computer science degree or an engineering degree, you're gonna end up with a really great career, like and a really great salary right out of school, right? Um, in order to set yourself up for that in high school, as crazy as it sounds, you do have some AP or challenging courses that you want to show these programs that you've taken, especially if you're aiming for a really selective school like MIT, Purdue, Georgia Tech. Um, yeah, so BC Calc, Calc BC incredibly important. You, just AB, they're gonna say one, it's gonna negatively impact your application if you don't have BC. So you don't want to do it. But then even if you get in despite that, then you'll probably have to take remedial math. So again, key to line yourself up to be able to take AP Calc BC, which is the second half of, the big AP Calc program. Um, Making sure that you've got that lined up so you can take it your senior year. Hey, if you get a 3 in AP Calc BC on the exam, that's fine. It's your senior year. You're not going to get your application rescinded. You just want to kind of line yourself up for that runway. AP Physics is also a pretty great one to have. It's quite challenging. So showing colleges that you're kind of able to meet that standard. And then depending on which area of engineering you're interested in, I think computer science, if there's anything having to do with like electrical engineering, if you're a coder, anything like that, you want to make sure you're taking the AP Comp Sci. Um, Other really great options would be AP Chem and AP Stats. Stats is a really great one. And you'll see that some of these also they release um, scoring statistics in each of these exam every year. So you'll see like, okay, what percent of students get a 5? What percent of students get a 4? You can kind of map out like what you can expect to get and also time out your coursework that way. Like if everybody bombs a specific AP, like most people get 3s, and then maybe you don't take it till your senior year. It obviously has to make sense, but that's something that's a factor to think about. Next, we got pre-med, health medicines. Now, one thing to mention, health sciences, not health medicines. One thing I will say is that pre-med's not a major, but and increasingly med schools are interested in applicants who have different majors, often like humanities majors, like sociology, psychology. Those are all actually um, quite a few applicants come from that field. So that's great, but you do obviously want to not, if you're interested in medicine, probably not going totally out of the frying pan into the fire from your college coursework to med school is going to set you up for some success. And so lining yourself up with some really challenging coursework in high school. APIB biology, chemistry, again, calc. Calc is great if you have anything that is, if you are interested in anything more on the STEM side or mathy side or even econ, anything that's going to require some kind of like quantitative reasoning, AP Calc is really going to be to your benefit. Also great things to look at: AP Physics, AP Psych, AP Stats, and yes, AP English. AP English is going to help you in any area for any major that you apply to. Pre-law and humanities, social sciences. Again, there's no pre-law major, and there are a variety of majors that students will have before applying to law school. But writing is going to be key here, right? So English, Lang, and Comp, definitely. Definite, like non-negotiable. If you're interested in any kind of humanities major, college does involve an insane amount of writing and reading. So there's no better way to prepare yourself for college level writing and reading than AP English Lang and AP English Lit. It's a volume that's more representative of colleges, and that is same for the IB programs. It's just truly the first time that you're going to actually experience like college level writing, reasoning, rhetoric, all stuff you're going to have to do. So you want to start with some really good guidance. And in high school, if you end up starting a little bit later, it just puts you a little bit more on the back foot. A-Push is also a great one, AP US History. It's known to be a pretty challenging course and a challenging exam, so that can look really great, especially if you're pre-law on a transcript. Um, Also, any AP in your area of interest. Oh, AP Psych, I think a lot of students will kind of go the like English history, psychology route, a lot of world history. There are people who are interested. There are a lot more of like international relations courses. But again, like substantiating this not only in your transcript, but outside of your school is going to be so important for any course you are, any like career course you're interested in. It is not just about showing it through your transcript. You want to really act it out, right? And explore it outside of the classroom in a way that's a little bit more suited to you. So that's a key way to supplement a lot of this work. Okay, let's talk about some key takeaways here. Oh, wow, I can't believe I'm going to be right on time. Crazy. Please put any questions you have in the chat now, just so I can address them before we're done. But I'll take us through these key takeaways first. So, course rigor is going to be more important than raw GPA. More to the point, no one's going to care about a raw GPA. They're going to view it in context. So that's what you want to do when you're looking at your admissions odds is I know my GPA, but what is it in context? Asking your counselor, where does my GPA factor? Where does it sit compared to other students in my grade? Even if your school does not do course rankings, guidance counselors do have to, in their kind of student recommendation, they have to ballpark, are you in the top 10%, 5% of students, 15, 25, 50? They have to ballpark that. So they will have an idea of that eventually, and it's good to just ask them. Because I think that's what colleges will be looking at. Second, matching your course load to your target schools, reverse engineering things a little bit. I want to be an engineer. Okay, I better really set myself on the pathway to be able to take AP Calc BC, for instance, my senior year. AP and IB are both excellent opportunities. A lot of it's going to be, selected by what is available at your school. But again, go beyond what is at your school. I think that's where you are able to differentiate yourself because everyone's going to take a great AP course. A lot of people will take AP courses offered at their school. What are you doing outside of school? That's different, right? That's how you kind of set yourself apart. But again, rigor-wise, you can't do better than AP IB programs. Um, just for APs, the AP course grade and AP exam score are viewed separately. That is not so for IBs. It's the same. So that is one key distinction, for better or for worse. I think in some cases that's a benefit, some cases it's not, depends on the student. An IB diploma signals exceptional commitment. So those are really, really impressive. It shows you've really challenged yourself. You might not have to have perfect sevens in every single kind of course, but um, it does show a really strong commitment, which looks really great. And finally, temper your senioritis. I don't say don't have it at all because you work really hard, you deserve to take a little break, but just temper it so you're going to be okay. And parents, I think the other thing is don't I think that is the best way to approach that with students is it's not that you have to have perfect grades. You've worked really hard. You deserve to take a break. However, just be aware if you take a total nosedive, here's what could happen. Let's not do that. Let's get you some great course credits. Just temper the senioritis. You don't have to eradicate it altogether. Okay. Sorry, this sent me back to the wrong thing. All right, so last little item for Q&A. I'm gonna go ahead and let me stop sharing my screen and then I will drop my little consultation link in the chat for anyone who is interested. Again, we're doing some great AP tutoring. It is about that time to start thinking about getting that great AP score, not just grade. And we know of a lot of folks who are currently a little bit worried about that AP Calc exam. So we're talking to a lot of folks about it. We got some great tutors who are able to support in that arena. So I will drop my consultation link here. Additionally, you'll get an email with this recording in a little bit, um, as well as my booking link through that. So just keep an eye out for some special discount offers. Thank you all to everybody who share their Thursday night with us, and we will hopefully be in touch soon. Okay, here is
Okay.
the copy link, and here is the link. Okay, all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.